Hi, it's John Findlay here. We're on Talkin Blues with Mako, and I started out as a piano player at age 6. Went to guitar, and then I kept doing piano and guitar, and I've been a full-time musician since I was 15.
So you started with the piano. Tell me about how that came about. Was that your parents telling you to do so, or was that you?
Good question. Yeah, well, we ended up with a piano somehow, and I was taking piano lessons, and of course I hated that because I was getting hit by a ruler by my teacher. So that kind of probably pointed me more into the direction of guitar, which is more of a rebellious thing. So I kind of just jammed. I gave up piano lessons, just started jamming on my own, and then picking up guitar, age 8 or something.
Okay, so piano lessons would have been classical music?
Yeah.
And guitar would have been what?
Yeah, just the cream, Inagata da vida.
And did it come easy to you?
Yes, it did. Everybody had guitars back then in the early 70s, late 60s, early 70s. There was guitars everywhere. And everybody had a piano in their house back then, too. So it was just through osmosis, just picking stuff up.
How much did the introductory to the piano, help you musically in your guitar playing?
I don't know. I guess on piano as an instrument, there's a real sense of structure that's very easy to relate to. You've got the one octave starting at middle C,
right,
and then it just basically repeats up and down. Guitar is a bit more of a mystery to me, even today. the way it's tuned. So yeah, I guess piano. When I play piano now, I did do quite a bit of jazz training on piano, and became very fluent in bebop and stuff for quite a number of years. I just gives me a sense of structure, a sense of security to be able to see the harmony in front of me. And then, as a guitar player, I guess I try and emulate that somewhat, sort of the clarity, how piano is percussive. So I have a little bit of that in my guitar playing as well.
So when you decided to play the guitar, did you want to be Clapton? Is that what happened?
Yeah. Basically, yeah. It was. What would have been the first record we had? I'm not sure, but I was listening to Purple Haze. We had that record somehow. I doubt my parents listened to it, although they were into rock and roll as well. But I was listening to what was it? Not Cry of Love, but the first one there. The one with Purple Haze. So I was listening to that when I was about 8. And it just sounded like space music to me. And
well, I wonder, because I was listening to Hendrix the other day, and I was thinking, I know that it was one of those things, one of those moments where when he came on board or when he became a thing, it was nothing like what was going on before.
Yeah.
You were listening to music around that time. Yeah. Did you feel that same way, or were you still too young so that you didn't know the difference that he made?
I didn't really know the difference. The way like I said like a minute ago, I related to it more like as space music. It was like also like listening to the White Album by the Beatles. Like I loved all the tunes, but the tune that really kind of freaked me out was number 9, which wasn't even a song, right? But it's just when you're a kid, you hear that, oh, that's really creepy. That's, it takes you somewhere else.
So did you start playing with bands immediately?
Well, I started jamming with rhythm sections to that when I was probably, 11 or 12. Yeah, started doing basement jams and stuff. And, of course, we're playing the Cream, the Hendrix, and everything. And, I was still playing piano as well, just doodling around, basically, without much structure. But... so I really, really got heavily into trio rock, I guess, the early 70s. Cream, Hendrix, Allman Brothers were big. Mahavishnu Orchestra was in there because that was like rock, but we didn't really know what it was back then. Yeah.
At what point did you think I want to be a musician?
Oh, pretty much, when I was about 12 or 13.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it started like building. And then I think by the time I ended up actually in a professional band at age 15. You could maybe quasi-professional. We were supposed to be getting gigs. I ended up going to the States when I was 15 with a band, a guy that was in his 20s, older, and with the permission of my parents, and doing some gigs down south, all through Kentucky and into Georgia and stuff. Spent the summer down there playing. Didn't really go anywhere, and I came back wondering what I had just done.
Did you enjoy that life?
I'm not sure if I enjoyed it. I just wanted to play. I just really loved the idea of being a musician and playing. And at that age, you don't really know what it is. You're just sort of, I just knew I didn't want to be in school.
But I wonder, at age 15 and traveling to the States and playing gigs, what impression did you get out of that experience?
Yeah, good question. Well, I think I started realizing as the summer wore on that I was too young to be doing this. That's definitely one thing I got.
That's pretty mature.
Yeah, I know. It was sort of mature in a young way. But I realized that I had some sort of passion for music that I couldn't even put my finger on. I think other people around me realized that as well. And I got an awful lot of encouragement to go forth and actually become a musician.
Which means that you must have been pretty good.
Back then, I was pretty much, I'm not to brag or anything, but I was playing a lot of Hendrix, Clapton stuff, pretty much like as well as they could play it. I mean, obviously not like how they played it,
right.
But technically, I seemed to be able to got a lot together within those. Well, would have been I'd already been playing for about 8 years, so because I started around age 8, so I was already pretty good when I was 14 and 15.
And that's something else that your mom or your parents would have said, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Do this.
Yeah.
Like, that's something
weird.
else.
It was pretty weird back then. I would not let my kid do that.
So what do you think? Why do you think that happened? Is it just the type of people they are? Or?
The type of people they were. And the guy that I went with, actually, his father was a old-time Kentucky lawyer who seemed to give them some security, and that they could send me off with his son down there to do that. So it was really an experience.
And then you come back, and what happens? What are you thinking?
That's interesting. That's one of those big changing points. I came back, and I guess I felt like I wanted to change direction. So I started playing a bit more piano, and then discovered Keith Jarrett.
Wow.
The Cone concert.
Yes, of course.
And I grew up in Ottawa, so we used to go to the Arts Center and different places to hear a lot of blues. When I was growing up, we had Lahiboo, which was a coffee house, so I got to hear Sonny Terry and Brownie McGee, and I think Muddy Waters, and maybe even Howlin' Wolf was there. I can't remember, but many, many great American artists. And then we had the Arts Center where we'd go see B.B. King, Keith Jarrett, and then Carleton University had concerts. We got to see James Cotton with Matt Guitar Murphy there a lot. So my dad was always taking me out. We were always seeing this kind of stuff. But anyway, so I guess somehow my parents got Cone concert record. And after that trip to the States, I came back and heard that. And I just went, wow, I want to try and figure out what he's doing.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I think that's a great album. But tell me what you see or hear in that album.
Well, it's not really a jazz like a bebop album. It's that's probably why it was so accessible. It's very melodic. You might even say a little poppy at times, but it's very dreamy. And I think as a kid, because I wasn't really into classical music that much yet, but just something about the recording of it, which is incredible. and the dreaminess of it. It was a nice break from having played so much rock and roll for the past 5 years, the previous 5 years. So it was a nice break, and it just, I don't know what, it just ignited me.
Wow. So you got on the piano and started.
Yeah, I started figuring some of that stuff out, and then we had a lot of Oscar Peterson records and Thelonious Monk and Ellington. We had all the jazz stuff being played from time to time. So I was already sort of new to music, and I just sort of, for about, I guess, the next 5 years, I really just really heavily got into piano, especially the jazz stuff.
Did you stop playing guitar?
I kept playing guitar, but was more put to the side. And I just practiced. I did really not go to school. I just basically practiced piano 14 hours a day.
Okay, so if I'm not mistaken, you went to Berklee School of Music.
Yeah, I went to Berklee for a 3-month semester, which was a real eye-opener.
What made you decide to go there, and what did you hope to accomplish?
Okay, well, that was after I kind of discovered Keith Jarrett and that, and I was like, I got to figure out more. I need some instruction here. Now, I did have instruction. Like I said, I grew up around a lot of pianos and a lot of people that could play them. A lot of boogie woogie jazz. Guys, friends of my parents from that era who could actually show me stuff. So, but I had no theory as of yet, really. So I needed to get some understanding, some education of the theory of the chord changes and all that jazzy stuff, and in classical as well. Yeah, I started studying a lot of classical stuff.
So that was the goal, is to go down there and get that
I wanted
theory.
to figure out exactly. Yeah, because I hadn't read music since I was 6 years old, and so I came to it late. I guess the whole reading music and being educated, that started basically when I was about 15, going into 16. And I also started gigging around then as well. So I was already gigging, and I took that summer off. It would have been 76 or 16, and went down to Berklee, did the 3-month course, which was fantastic.
What did that do for you?
That made me realize what a commitment it is to learn jazz, to really know it, to really understand it.
So does that drive you to make that commitment, or does it drive you away from it?
It drove me into it more at the time. And it still does, although I don't really study anything new per se these days. But I am constantly on the hunt to understand more about chord changes. I listen to Bill Evans every day, and I still listen to Keith Jarrett and all those people, as well as all the other stuff, the blues stuff as well.
Okay, so I think of you as a guitar player. What do you think of yourself as, a guitar player or a piano player?
Well, these days there's more of a guitar player, but the one reason I sort of let the piano go to the side was as gear. There was sort of a time in the 80s where you really needed to buy a lot of gear to get any good sounds.
For keyboards.
As on keyboards, yeah. Guitar, you could still just use one amp and a couple of pedals, but keyboards, all of a sudden there was these samplers, and I had racks of gear, and I was lugging it everywhere to gigs. And sometimes I get asked to play guitar and keyboard, so I was doing both on the same. And then I was lugging out. And I finally just said, I don't want to gig as a keyboard player anymore if it means lugging all this stuff around.
Why do you think that is? I mean, who caused that?
I think it was just bad technology. It was just new technology that they needed. It was so bulky back then. And now it's become more, you can actually get one keyboard to do everything.
Right.
They actually sound pretty amazing. So maybe I should give it another shot. I don't know.
Do you still play the keyboards?
Yeah, I play at home. I don't practice, religiously or anything. Like I still practice a lot of guitar because I'm doing a lot of guitar gigs, so I try to keep my chops fresh. From time to time I get asked to do a keyboard gig, and I have to think, I think I'll pass on that one. It might be a little too hard, or maybe if I have time I can practice up for it. And
okay, so when you make that decision, you would think, I don't know if I want to be carrying all this keyboard gear. I'm going to become a guitar player or focus more on guitar. Is that a difficult decision? Is that hard decision to make?
In a way, but I was getting tired of how the keyboard sounded on gigs. It always sounded kind of tinny to me. And I wanted to get back to more of a realism.
Are we talking the 80s here? Or what?
Yeah. From about 80, like it was all fun at the beginning, like the early 80s when synths started coming out, and you could, end of the late 70s for that matter. You could get a keyboard, get a lot of sound out of it. And then to be a professional keyboard player, though, you needed, a lot of racks of gear back then and 2 or 3 keyboards. And I had all that. And so I didn't mind letting that go. I sold my gear. It didn't really have that much value because the technology was changing so much. But in the guitar world, you could still just use an old Fender amp and an old Strat, which I have. Mm-hmm. And it sounds the same as it did when you first got it, and it's still usable today.
Right.
Yeah.
And musically, what were you doing at that point?
What, in the 80s?
Yeah.
Good question. Really a bit of everything. I would do like some jazz gigs on piano, and then I would be on guitar for, I wouldn't say lounge gigs, but kind of like hotel gigs. Jobbing gigs, weddings. Yeah, jobbing gigs and weddings, hotels and stuff. And, some really good gigs, like a lot of Latin gigs were happening back then. I was playing guitar on some of that stuff. And then, as the late 80s came, I completely transitioned to guitar by 90, basically, and ended up actually working, this is another segue into something else, but in the studio scene, more as a session player.
And how easy was it to get into that scene?
Well, I sort of got in the side door at a studio. I just happened to be there. It was a Digital Sound, I think, on Spadina, by a place that Rob Yale had. I was in there doing demos, some of my own stuff, I guess. And then there was a jingle producer there and heard some stuff, and then he got me on some jingles, and then I started writing jingles, and
really
I started investing heavily into guitars, like acoustic guitars for sessions. I had like about 20 guitars rotating in and out of the 12th fret, always constantly getting repaired, intonated. And also in the 90s, it was a good time to be playing acoustic guitar for recordings.
Did that come easy to you?
Yeah. I'd also been playing acoustic guitar my whole life as well, like classical and, along with the electric guitars.
Good Lord, you were just full of music.
Yeah, it's just kind of endless here. But
sorry, did the session work come easy to you?
Yeah, well, my first recording session was probably when I was 16 or 15 on piano. Maybe 16. Yeah, it was terrifying. I was so nervous. I think my father brought me to the session. The engineer had to come out and say, "Okay, it's all right. Just take a breath. It's okay." And I was probably so ahead of the beat, so ahead of the click that. So I'd already been doing sessions, like a lot of recording. Going back into the 70s and that. So it was already... And I'm still working with a very good friend of mine, Philip Bova in Ottawa. I started out with him when I was 16 on gigs, and he was an engineer, and he had me on his sessions. And I just chatting with him a minute ago about gear and stuff. We're still working together. It's amazing. Wow. 50 years.
That's amazing.
I know. Yeah, he's still at it, hard and strong.
So did you, at any point, because being in the music industry, I can imagine wouldn't be easy. And sounds like you did everything. I
felt that I had to, because I knew I was taking a huge risk by not completing high school,
right.
And my parents were not too pleased about that. But I did start making money at an early age. Wasn't making a fortune or anything, but there was a lot of work back then.
So I wonder if we go back a few years and think about young John as a musician and what you would hope to accomplish in music, what would that have been? Would it be to start a band, or was it to be a sideman, or was it to
Yeah.
write your own songs?
Probably to be my own boss, basically, my own, be an artist, because I was composing a lot back then. When I was doing the jazz study stuff, I started writing. I found that a good way to actually to learn. So I was trying to emulate Monk. I was trying to write stuff like Monk, and then I'd write something that was a bit more Duke Ellington, then an Oscar thing, and then a Keith Jarrett thing. And at the same time, I also really liked rock still. And so going, closer into the 80s, there was the punk and the new wave. And so I was starting to write stuff like that on guitar as well. So I always basically wanted to be a composer, writer, maybe not necessarily a songwriter, but just a writer, a composer.
So what would be the difference? What's the difference there?
The difference would be that I wasn't writing lyrics.
Oh, okay.
So, to be a qualified songwriter, you'd have to be able to string together, a couple of sentences here and there. I wasn't very verbal. Everything was about sound and music back then. And although I was singing, but I was only a backup singer, like on the gigs, singing harmony and stuff. I never even thought of becoming a singer until probably later in the 80s. I started singing my own demos when I got my first Porta studio at home, because I could. But even then, I wasn't very serious about it. And then by 90, though, I started singing a lot.
And how was that?
That was hard because I didn't have the years of hardened vocal cords that what I wanted to hear, what I heard from my friends who were awesome singers. I'd always worked with really great singers. Like growing up in the 70s, I was in a rock band called Butler, and Peter Fredette was the lead singer who went on to be with Ken Mitchell.
What a great singer.
Yeah, he's incredible. Even back then, he's not changed at all. And I actually hadn't seen him for like 30 years. I just saw him a couple of months ago. Hey, Peter.
It still sounds great.
Yeah, he still said he just had that. But I remember on a gig he lost his voice. We were doing Zeppelin and stuff, and he wasn't talking in the van one day. He says, "I can't talk. My doctor said not to talk because I've lost." I said, "Well, no wonder." Anyways, but when I started, I had more of a really mellow quality to my voice. I could sing in tune, and I could write stuff, but so I started writing like pretty soft stuff, and then that was fun for a while, and that wore off. And then I started singing a bit more blues, and then I started singing more in blues bands as well, either lead singing or backup, and started belting a bit more, and then started changing its shape,
Blues is always in your life, though, right? Like you started off with Cream.
Yeah.
But it sounds like you kind of came back to it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the 80s was all about working in the music business, It was all about, trying to be involved with records that might be a hit, or trying to get on gigs, tours. I was in Europe with Katrina and the Waves one summer. That was like 3 or 4 months.
What was that like?
It was fun. It was pretty top-notch touring. I thought I would like it a lot more than I did. It's the same old, you do the gig, you go to your hotel room, sleep, get up early, you're off to the next place. It was a little bit better than driving around in a van around Ontario.
Right.
But because they had a hit record at the time. But, my favorite gigs as a sideman would be more like when I actually did play with Matt Guitar Murphy in late 80s, early 90s, can't remember exactly.
How did that happen?
Once again, I think a bass player from the States had a girlfriend up here. He came up here and he arranged to have Matt come up and do some tours in Ontario. I had hired that bass player for one of my jazz gigs, and so he hired me for that. And it turns out that I wasn't sure who Matt was until I realized I had seen him play with James Cotton in the early 70s.
Right. Oh, he certainly did his thing. Yeah.
And it wasn't, strangely enough, it wasn't until after I played with him that I realized that he had played with Howling Wolf. Like he was one of Howling Wolf's first guitar players.
Wow.
From what I remember reading in the Howling Wolf book. Anyways, I was like, what? So I was like, it was just awesome playing with him. He was just such a spirited guitar player. Awesome, awesome guitarist.
What would you have learned from that experience?
Well, I got a lot from the blues, that's for sure. I would still say that's probably the warmest place in my heart for music is the blues, like Muddy Waters, Sonny Terry Brown and McGee, the whole thing, the whole, Lead Belly. Although I didn't really know who all those people were when I was a kid, we had those records that were played. The sound is the haunting quality that those artists had stuck with me and still with me today. So to play with Matt Guitar Murphy, who played with some of those people, was just, and he just had so much soul in his playing.
So what I find fascinating is the fact that you were doing your rock thing, you were doing your jazz thing, which I think the jazz thing is probably close to your heart as well.
Yeah.
And it's lasted a long time.
It just the sound we had going, back then. Things were mixed with blues and jazz,
and you've done your sideman gigs. You've written your songs. You've done a lot of different things. In fact, you also did Rent. You did theater.
Back then, we were getting a lot of calls. There was a lot of theater shows that had 2 or 3 year runs, and I did that for about 2 years off and on. First I subbed, then I went to Vancouver, did it as the guitar piano guy. Other shows I got called for, I got called for most of them, but I turned them down. Maybe that was getting into a bit later. Yeah, I guess my kid was born in 2000. Yeah, there was a period of time where I did Rent, and I don't think I did a show after that, but I got called for shows, and I sort of stayed away from that. That was tough.
What was it like to be involved in the theater world? Did that come natural to you?
No, that really did not. Unfortunately, that was hard. I really have a lot of respect for my friends who have stuck with it for their whole life, basically. They've been in and out of theater shows.
Give me your impressions on what that experience was.
I don't think I have... basically, as I mentioned, blues and jazz together, the thing about that music, which is different from classical and, performing written pop songs, is there's an improvised quality to that. And I feel improvising is really close to my heart. It's just as a form of expression. I find that I feel better when I do it, when I improvise. And so blues and jazz, there's lots of room for that. You can take a blues melody and turn it around on its head, and you never do the same solo every night. Same in jazz. Theaters are written out. You have to play the parts. And I'm just a bit too... I don't have the focus for that.
But you did it for 2 years. But you did it for 2 years. So how do you do that for?
Well, it was really hard. It really, actually, I don't want to, once again, I don't want to diss that industry in any kind of way.
No, it's a different discipline.
It put me in an awful mood. I was just so glad when it was over.
Oh.
And then I went back to writing jingles, that's a pretty high pressure environment as well, but nothing like the theater thing.
So, did you say writing jingles?
Yeah, I went back to being a session man after I did the 2 years in the theater. I mean, I was still doing that as well, but
that's got to be difficult too, right? Because there's got to be a certain amount of discipline.
You're
and
writing on command. You're writing. That's tough. But I took that as a challenge to see, how many different styles can I master this year, writing jingles. They wanted something that sounded like The Simpsons. They wanted something that sounded like My Three Sons. They wanted a Coltrane, McCoy Tyner track. They wanted a Madonna. They wanted a folky thing. I would just attack those styles.
So if you write jingles, is it? And I don't want financial details, but
Sure.
is it like you get paid a certain amount of money to work a certain amount of time? Do you get anything else out of the jingles?
Well, we used to get royalties. Okay. Yeah.
So you own the rights to those songs? If they say, we want a new campaign for...
I don't think it's rights. I think it's broadcast
residuals?
Residuals. Yeah, they're called residuals, exactly.
Okay.
It's not a songwriter royalty, it's a residual. Yeah.
So you have no ownership of that?
No.
That part makes no sense.
If anybody has ownership, it might be the producer I worked for who owned the studio and the guy that got the gigs.
Right.
He probably... Although we never reused jingles that we wrote, we always did fresh ones because back then you were dealing with the clients and they wanted to be involved from the ground up. So they would come to the studio and you'd play a little bit and what do you think? And
wow.
yeah, I got out of jingles because it became more of a bidding situation where each jingle house would be approached by Tim Hortons or whoever, and they would say, give us 10 from each house. And then they wouldn't work with you on that. They would just then listen to all 30 and they would just pick the one they wanted.
So if they didn't pick you, you got nothing.
Yeah. My producer would pay me, some demo money or something, right? But it became more of a bidding thing. And that's also when technology was becoming real fast as well. And, MP3s and everything was speeding up and everybody could produce a lot faster. And I kind of bowed out of that scene.
Then what do you do?
Well, I ended up actually scoring more documentaries for a while.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I haven't done a lot, but I did a fair bit, some for CBC, History Channel. My brother is a director who worked for Discovery and History and all those. I used to work for him.
So that's once again a very different discipline from reading sheets of music at a theater to writing songs for jingles.
Yeah.
Tell me about what.
Yeah, composing an hour's worth of music from scratch is a huge task. Huge task. I had to do a World War II kind of one where I had to do... How would I even describe it? War reel music sounding classical, kind of like military stuff. And, the technology at the time, this was, late 90s, early 2000s. Yeah, there's a lot of sample libraries of orchestral instruments. So you do mock orchestral stuff. Very, very time consuming.
So this is you back on the keyboards.
Yeah, I'm back. I've now got a studio in my house and I'm pumping out scores. So I thought I wanted to go that direction, and then I realized that's just too much sitting in front of a computer. So I grabbed the guitar and got back into that. So that didn't last that long, maybe 5 years of that.
Wow, that's still a long time.
I know, it was, yeah.
and did that come easy to you? I mean, I think there's such
The musical part came easy. I can compose classical music in my head.
So you watch a scene, you get an idea what the story is, and in your mind...
I can just start writing around the spot instantly.
Wow.
Yeah, because I have enough classical training and I listen to enough that I kind of know how to piece it together.
But how do you know you're going in the right direction? Because being a video editor, I know how important music is and how it can change everything and usually make things better.
Yeah. Well, I didn't always go in the right direction.
Okay.
As an example, one of the last ones I did, which was a huge documentary that it was aired on TVO and probably other places as well. But yeah, it was for my brother, and he traveled all over the world doing research on opium and shooting and stuff. And I remember when it came down to the final mixing session for the music, his producer said, "Let me hear this cue. Let me hear this section without music." And I went, "Oh God, okay, I've really blown it." And and it was at that point I realized I kind of overscored. Like I put too much emotion into the music, and it kind of overshadowed the character that it was about.
Right.
It was too much backstory to the music, if you will.
But it's such a subjective thing.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I mean, what works for me doesn't necessarily mean it works for you.
That's right.
I mean, the whole film thing, whether it be the edit or the storytelling or the music.
Yeah.
And I would presume that the director is giving you some guidance so that it doesn't go, you don't go way the wrong way.
Yeah. My brother might have dropped the ball in this instance. He didn't say anything
Because he trusts you.
Yeah, he probably trusted me. But it was when his producer came in for the final, and I was like, okay, I don't think he likes this cue. But that's okay. And it was some time around that I realized, okay, this is really challenging, really fun, really stretches your imagination and your chops and the technical part of, back then, for the majority, I was still using VHS to sync. Which was brutal.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Syncing your computer, whatever you were writing on, to a VHS time code. But whatever. So I finally realized, you know what? I think I just want to get back into playing and writing songs. And that was around 2005. And I just started pumping out songs and just releasing them, on CD myself. And it was a lot of fun.
Okay, so... Yeah. This is what I find interesting. This is one of the reasons why I want to talk to you. As I said before, in this summer, you've had a busy summer. I saw you with Pretzel Logic, which is the Steely Dan tribute band.
Yes.
A couple of days or a day or two before that, you were playing in a park with your other tribute band, which is Dixie Chicken, which is the Little Feat tribute band. I don't know if you have other tribute bands you work with. But at the same time, you are putting out your own songs and putting it on the internet, sharing it with people. When I talk to musicians, often they will complain about not getting enough gigs because so many tribute bands or cover bands are out there.
That's right.
You're kind of in the middle, both. You're doing both sides.
Yeah.
How do you view that?
Yeah, good question. Well, the Steely Dan stuff and even the Little Feat stuff, because I grew up with that music. I first heard Little Feat. I must have been 13. What was the name of the album? Lightning. No, that's Larry Call. Feats Don't Fail Me might have been the name of the record.
Right.
Not Dixie Chicken. It was the one after that, I guess. But I just remember hearing that, and that just stuck with me my entire life. And I kept going back to it. It's like, I was really drawn to their music.
What do you think it was about that music? What is it?
Well, they just had a kind of very unpredictable approach to the way they played and the way they wrote songs. Quite the opposite of Steely Dan. And there was something bluesy about them. Although they kept taking left turns and, sort of doing weird stuff. And, so something about that. So I can do a tribute to Little Feat pretty easily and feel comfortable. And same with Steely Dan. That's more on the studied guitar side of things, because they hired so many session players, and I was a session player, and those were the guys we looked up to: Jay Graydon, Larry Carlton, etc., etc. So it's paying respect to their playing when I do that gig, even though I go off in tangents and do my own thing as well. I do try to pay respect to their playing and abilities. Yeah.
So most of the show, how much of it is charted?
Well, I made my own charts for the gig, so I've actually notated all the guitar solos out myself.
Okay. And then is it exactly the same as the record, or?
It is, but then I end up not reading it, or I forget it, or something happens and I do something different, and I don't try and play everything note for note.
Okay.
As I heard somebody say, "Oh, I saw a great tribute band," and they didn't slave over all the details, because you can get into slaving on this stuff, right? So,
is it different than being in a theater environment of reading the charts because you have that flexibility?
Well, yeah. And plus, you're so in love with the solos that these guys
Right,
did,
okay.
and they slaved over it. Especially in the case of Steely Dan, but also probably somewhat with Little Feat as well. Lowell George was quite a taskmaster, from what I've read. They worked really hard, and they didn't have all the digital stuff to help them out back then. So, respect to them.
I mean, Steely Dan is known for the precision and the studio quality. When you do the Little Feat, is there a little more flexibility?
Definitely, yeah. It's much swampier, looser. You can't really play Little Feat note for note. You
Right.
can't be Little Feat. You can play Steely Dan note for note because, like you said, the precision that's involved. But yeah, Little Feat's actually harder to play, and you kind of got to let go of the details on that gig and just do your own thing. So.
Harder because why? Because of that improvisational?
It's more improvisational, and just the structures are just messier with Little Feat and just stranger. Yeah, not so symmetrical. Yeah.
So where does your own music come into this?
Yeah, I'm somewhere in between Little Feat and Steely Dan. And then all the other influences as well.
Right.
But those are when I think of writing songs, I don't think of writing a blues. I don't think of writing a pop tune. I think of what does it feel like? What is the groove? Is it going to be swampy? Is it going to be a little more high-tech funk, like a Steely Dan precision thing? I'm somewhere in that middle. And then I, of course, draw on all of the stuff that I've ever played to fill in the middle. Yeah,
and you continue to write. I mean, it's a different world out there, and releasing CDs in some ways doesn't make the same amount of sense as it used to. How do you view that, and what keeps you continually creating more new things?
Yeah, I don't think I'll be making physical CDs, although I wouldn't mind making a vinyl record. Even if it's just me that's playing it. But I would like to hear one day my music on vinyl, just to hear what it sounds like, if it's mastered
Right.
for vinyl as well. But I think it's I grew up with tape and big tape machines and gear, and that's the sound I'm used to. You don't get that sound. I don't even get that sound. I'm listening on earbuds. I'm listening on headphones a lot. I have a lot of speakers. I don't use them that much because I'm in my studio so much, and I work out at home. If I had the speakers on the whole time, I'd drive my wife nuts, or whoever's around, or people in the neighborhood. But so, I don't think people have the listening experience that they might have had 20, 30 going back.
For sure.
They have a different experience, but it's just not the same, My mission for me is to, what would it sound like on a great stereo system? That's the kind of music, not how squashed and how inside your brain can I make it feel like with the earpods on, right?
But you have the need to create.
Oh yeah.
And that it's constant.
Yeah, I just get an idea and I just go over and I start writing. I don't question it. I just immediately. I just did that last night. I had an idea for a tune, and I got up in the middle of the movie we were watching. So just give me 10 minutes. I have a whole, and then usually, if I have that germ for a song, it's pretty much the song is not written, but it's pretty much on its way to being written.
So you're watching a movie, and all of a sudden you stand up and you have an idea in your head.
That's right. Yeah.
Because does it come from the movie?
No, it's probably something my wife was looking at on her phone. I said, "What is that? Is that a blue butterfly?" And I said, "Okay, great. Okay, I'm off to the studio."
And you're hearing music, or you're hearing?
I hear the groove and the feel of the song, not sure about the chords sometimes, but I definitely go, okay, I have the phrasing for that, blue butterfly, butterfly blue. So nobody steal that from me because I'm going to write. But so yeah, and I'll just fly over there and just like quickly get the groove down, the title. You know, if I have time, I'll write a few words and then just okay, good. That's something that could be dealt with later. Yeah.
Wow. Does that happen constantly?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, because I'm trained myself to be on the lookout for hooks and lyrical ideas, themes. You know, even instrumentally, I'm always hunting around, always grabbing things. Like if it's a fire truck going by or a car horn, you know, or a sound from anywhere can be something to inspire. Yeah, it's kind of neurotic in a way.
But if I was to ask you, why do you do that? What would you say? How would you answer that? Why do you continually write?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Especially when you know there's not a lot of money unless you get placement in a film, because there's no streaming is kind of, there's no physical product to be bought.
Right.
And I don't know where that's going to go in the future, but
it's got nothing to do with that.
Yeah.
It's about creativity.
Oh yeah. I don't even care about that. Well, I'm still holding out hope that I'm going to make some money from one or several songs or compositions in some kind of way. And like I said, it will probably be in film. I still get SOCAN royalties from stuff I did. This one film I scored was a student film, will not go away. I swear to God, I just got a nice royalty check from it. I did it in the late 80s. Wow. On a 4-track recorder. So I'm still getting money for that. I don't know where it's playing. I think Italy or something. Maybe it's streaming. But so you want to create. I still believe there's money to be made as a writer, and then playing wise, like you said, there's a plethora of tribute bands that you could go in and out of to keep playing. That's also can be fun, like we've discussed. But I'm still trying to, hold out hope that there's some money to be made in writing. But I also just do it because I do it.
And have done it for many, many, many years.
Yeah, I'm just going on that, yeah.
Okay, so the other thing you told me was you've lost some of your hearing.
Yeah.
How does that affect you? How did that, I presume it happened because the years of playing music.
Yeah, probably my hearing wasn't great. I went for a hearing test about 4 or 5 years ago, and she said, yeah, was it the right ear was down quite a bit in the high end compared to the left or something. And I'm not sure which ear it was, but so I was like, yeah, okay, that's not bad. She said, not bad considering you've been playing music for 50 years. And then after COVID, I don't know what happened. Maybe just, I had COVID several times and the vaccines, who knows what. But I started doing the Steely Dan tribute gig full time because I took the gig over from 2 other friends who had left the band. And I found volume to be really overwhelming, especially after being, how long was COVID? 2 years we were off, basically, quiet and, although I was still blasting at home, but but no, and then I something on a gig blasted my ear and it started going downhill. That was about 2 years ago. And then...
was it a moment?
Yeah, it was one moment where I got hit by a sound wave, basically, to the point where it nearly knocked me over. I don't know where it came from, the PA or on stage or what. Then I had a cold, and I was using in-ear monitors on stage while I was singing, and I couldn't hear myself. And it must be the Labor Day weekend.
Yes, the air show.
Yeah.
You heard that? No.
Yeah, I could hear that, yeah. Certain sounds get through the left ear. Then I had a cold. I was using in-ear monitors, and I kept turning them up because I couldn't hear, because I was stuffed up and I was singing, and I couldn't. And it was after that the damage got quite bad, and so I went for a hearing test again recently, after that, May or something. And they went, yeah, see the chart goes way down on the right side, which is your high end.
So how do you deal with that? How do you cope with that?
That was very upsetting for quite a few months. And so I tried to start working at home in my studio in mono, which was kind of okay for a bit. And I gave that up and just went back to stereo. And for some reason, my ears adjusted.
I wonder if it's the ear or the brain.
Who knows? Yeah.
So it's adjusted so you hear in stereo?
Yeah, and then I check it, my mixes in the car, which I would normally do anyways, or on a boom box or something. So yeah, I've found a way to compensate for whatever is lacking here. So it was kind of upsetting because it's actually, I can't hear what people are saying now in bars. Like for example, the gig that you came to at Drums and Flats, I would never be able to hear words you were saying in there on the break because of all the other chatter. Yeah. Like it's hard enough as it is, right?
Yeah, so, I have that issue, and it's scary.
It's going, what? So yeah, it was kind of. It's just, I'm just going to plow through that. Just hope for the best. You can't really wear hearing aids while you play music. It doesn't sound very good from what I'm told. But I'll probably get a hearing aid at some point. And
has it changed the way you play or the way you listen to music?
I don't think so. I'm a lot more careful about how I'm monitoring myself on stage. I'm now wearing earplugs, proper earplugs,
right.
Molded, custom molded. That's getting some. Have to get used to that. Things sound weird. You sound removed from the music a bit. It can be a bit of a bummer in that way. But we'll see. Yeah. Still new to me. Yeah.
No, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, it's all right. Yeah.
But I find your career quite fascinating and all the different things that you've done.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it was ever, oh no, I need to switch it up, or you just kind of kept going forward and other new opportunities happened that made you follow those opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
But it's interesting when you talk about it, how many different things you've done.
Yeah, it's been a long, it's like, working career musician. I just basically I never had a plan per se. If I couldn't hack doing the theater, I got out. If I couldn't hack the jingles, I got out. I admire people that are in these industries and keep at it, and it takes a lot of focus. I will say I am pretty scattered. That's one reason I probably jumped around a lot as well. Yeah.
So it worked in your favor.
Yeah, it worked in my favor in a way. Yeah.
But when you think about that kid who decided to stop going to school, and follow music, and now you've been doing it for over 50 years.
Yeah,
it's pretty amazing.
Yeah. It was. I took on a lot when I decided that I really. Actually, I can't remember the exact day, but I remember making this decision. That's it. I'm going to be a pro musician. I'm going to work hard at it.
And you have.
Yeah, do the studying you need to do to make some money. And not just for the money, obviously, but, the love to play and stuff like that. Yeah.
And is that passion of playing still there?
Oh, yeah, totally. Yeah, totally, 100%. I shouldn't say never, but I hardly ever dial it in or phone it in or whatever they say.
Did you ever question what you were doing?
Do I ever question?
Yeah, like were there periods where you thought, oh, what am I doing?
Yeah.
But other than just, what am I doing playing in theater that I don't like did you ever question being a musician?
No, never really questioned being a musician. I've wanted to quit, but when I say quit, that might be more like quit traveling for music or quit having to think about making money in music. But not quit playing, not quit writing or anything like that. I could never not play, not write. Just forget it. I wouldn't know what to do with myself.
Final question.
Yes.
At this stage in your career, and with all that you've done, do you have goals?
Yeah. I would say I definitely have goals. I think probably I touched on it, but my goal would be to make a record that, well, one way to put it would be sounds really good on vinyl, but also obviously translate to everything else, that has the sound of records that I grew up listening to. That may sound a little like nostalgic or something, but I'm not saying it has to sound bad like the old days, the bad things about it. Like, it's got to sound good, but something that sounds really warm, sort of analog.
With the songs that you've written already, and many that you have, I mean, are there songs from whatever you've written over the last 50 years
Sure.
that could be included in that collection, or that should be included in that collection? Or is this a brand new project?
Oh, what I'm doing now?
No, this thing that you want to achieve.
This would be part of a brand new project of what I'm doing now. What I'm trying to do is I'm producing at home, but I'm trying to outreach to my music community, studios and players, and get that sound rather than it all being on a box, be coming out of a computer. That's the sound I'm after.
Is it about a sound, or is it about a song? Like, what's the difference?
Yeah, very good question, actually. It's kind of about the sound of the song. Yeah, the sound of the song. And it's kind of like a flavor that you can get. You cannot get in a digital kind of way on a computer. It's kind of a feel, sense of space and air that you can only get with real players, and that's what I'm trying to grab all this music I've written in the last couple of years and push it into that framework.
Well,
yeah,
I look forward to hearing it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you, Mako.